Good evening. My name is Caitlin. This is KTXX22 Reading, and welcome back to my channel. I'm finally getting to my September wrap-up. In the month of September, I read 26 books. What? 31, but I want to count the collection as one because they were minuscule. That equates to 13 audiobooks, 9 graphic novels, 2 books that I physically read, and 2 children's books. The easiest way that I can do this is to go through them in the order that I read them. And maybe in the future, I will become more creative and be able to do favorite to least favorite. And maybe I will actually have the books from my library to show you and not just pictures. I do have a couple of books that I can hold up when I'm giving you my review or what have you. As always, I will link any pertinent information down below, especially if I did a full length review. That way, if you want more information about how I felt about a book, you can see it there. I will say before I get started, if you have not registered to vote, please do so. Exercise your rights. Okay, thanks. And let's get this ball rolling. The first book I finished in September was Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay. I give this book 5 stars. It was phenomenal. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Roxane reads the audiobook. She's great. I really like her essays. I think she does a really great job about incorporating personal things from her life and putting it into a setting that makes it accessible to other people. I did do a book burst or a 1-minute book review for this book, and I will link that down below if you want more of my thoughts. The next book is a children's book. That was Number One Sam by Greg Pizzoli. Now, this book is super cute. I really liked the artwork. It was kind of a counting book, but also a book about taking care of other people. I thought it was cute. I gave it 4 stars because I'm that person that rates children's books, because there are some really terrible children's books out there, and I just want people to be aware of them. The next book that I finished was Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. I will also tell you that if you do not follow me on Goodreads, the link's down below. I write reviews for everything I read. Most of the time they're pretty in-depth, so if you want to know more of my thoughts that are, more professionally put down, that's probably the better place to go, because sometimes in this setting, my mouth decides that it doesn't want to work with my brain and it's all over the place. But anyway, Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. I loved The Summer That Melted by Everything. In fact, that might be one of my all-time favorite books. And when Tiffany reached out to me, she's a native Ohioan author, and I'm from Ohio. So I love that she reached out to me and that we are in contact. I just really appreciated her offering me the ability to read this as an ARC. I did not finish it before the book actually came out because distractions. But I did finish it in the month of September, and I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was excellent. Very, very difficult subject matter is discussed in this. And if you've read The Summer That Melted Everything, you will know that same level of like trigger warnings for things. There's a scene in this book specifically that wrecked, like sobbing, caught completely off guard, and then it was resolved differently, but still, that was a mess. That was a really hard scene to read. But this is about Tiffany McDaniel's mother, Betty. It is a fiction story, but it is based on her real life about growing up and being other. Her mother is half indigenous. Her father was a full I believe Cherokee. So she did not look like everybody else. She had dark hair and dark skin, and she got a lot of flack because of that. She didn't even look like her siblings, who were all fair-haired because their mother was blonde hair, blue eyes. Definitely can recommend this. I think that do not go into McDaniel's writing thinking that you're going to get fluff, because she never comes with the fluff. It is punches the whole time. The next book was Road Rage by Joe Hill, which is a graphic novel, and this was not great. The artwork was really good. I gave it 2 stars. I was not impressed. It was an easy read. They were like 2 short graphic novel stories about semi-trailers, and I don't know what is up with Joe Hill and his dad, Mr. King, because they have both written short stories and or things of this matter that have to do with semi-trailers, so do with it as you will. The next was The Dark Tower, The Gunslinger Born by Robin Firth, which is book 1 in the Dark Tower graphic novel series, and I love this. I gave it 5 stars. My favorite book in the Dark Tower series is Wizard in Glass, and this, for me, is like revisiting Wizard in Glass with artwork and getting to see this story brought to life, and I really loved it. I'm so excited that I started this graphic novel series and that I'm still in the thick of it. I finished The Saturday Night Ghost Club by Craig Davidson. I gave this book 5 stars. I did do a review in a weekend reading vlog. I'll put the link to that down below. What I thought I was getting was a story about this group of kids that decides to go investigate haunted places in this town. And while that does happen in this is a story about grief and the terrible things that people do to other people and how that affects mental health. And it was wholly unexpected. I did not expect to have that kind of emotional response as it came to the ending. I kind of, guessed at what was going on, but the way that it affected me and the way that Davidson put it down on paperwork was excellent. I finished Creatures in the Night by Neil Gaiman, which is a short graphic novel collection of like short stories. I gave this 3 stars. It was perfectly adequate. Wasn't really anything that stood out for me. The font choice in the last story of this book was terrible. Obviously I wear glasses, so you would assume that I have problems seeing things, and I do far away, but this particular thing, you had to literally be right on it to read it because it was a cursive, like slanty. It was a bad font choice, which tampered the enjoyment factor of that story. Also, I'm not a huge fan of cats, and the stories in this feature cats heavily, which isn't a bad thing, but they were weird stories. I then finished The Dark Tower, The Long Road Home by Robin Firth, which is book 2 in that series. I gave it 5 stars as well. There will be a pattern. Just a continuation on the story that I wanted more from the actual Dark Tower series. When I physically read those books, I mean, we're talking like 2,500 pages of storytelling that Stephen King put together. And the history of Roland Deschain was so intriguing to me that I love that I'm finally getting to like delve in deeper and see the underbelly of this story that I really love. I then finished The Great Pumpkin Returns by Charles Schulz. I gave this 4 stars. It's not a new favorite, but it is fun and it was perfect September reading. I know that this is a sequel. I think there are like 2 other books that go into it, but Peanuts are classic, and The Great Pumpkin, it was a must. Tootsie needed me to read this to him. The next book I finished was My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. I reviewed this in that reading vlog as well, but I will give you a little bit of a synopsis here. This is 80s riot fun. I really liked the lightness of this for a horror book about demons, exorcisms, etc. I really enjoyed what this book does. My only complaint and why this got 4 stars is that I wish it was scarier. I desperately wanted this to be scarier, especially in the climax. I love the ending. I thought it was wrapped up and tied with a pretty little bow, but that climax, I needed it to be next level, and it just wasn't there. I do recommend this. I do think Grady Hendrix is doing something very fun with the horror genre. He's giving us horror, scary, but then again, making it very relatable and making it very palatable to people who are not necessarily comfortable with horror stories. And I do think somebody who is not me and who hasn't read multiple horror stories will probably find this very scary. And to that I say, read The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. That book messed me up, and that's a book that I highly recommend if you're wanting to be scared. This book is great. Nothing wrong with it. And this cover, 10 out of 10. Also, this is a sticker, but it like fits with the other stickers that are not really stickers, so it stays. The next book I finished was Apocalyptic Girl, an Aria for the End of Times by Andrew McLean. I gave this 2 stars. I don't even know what the purpose of this graphic novel was. It was a sci-fi slash post-apocalyptic doohig, but the explanation wasn't non-existent. It's like this is the middle book in a 3-book series, because this was action start to finish, but no context. So you don't care about the character. You don't care about what happens. You don't know who these people are that she's going up against. You have no idea what's going on. So that was frustrating and not what I was hoping for out of that. The next thing I finished was Pines by Blake Crouch. I gave this 2 stars. Blakey boy, why you do this to me? I also reviewed this in that weekend reading vlog. If you want more of my post-read initial thoughts, no, just no. For me, this book is not good. I didn't think that the twist at the end was good enough for me to continue, so I will not be continuing in the Wayward Pines trilogy. I will tell you that I felt like for this much of the book, the front part of the book, it was the longest prologue / introduction that I've ever read. And then the ending, while it was good, it didn't pay off for the 6 hours of BS that I had to slog through. No, thank you. The next book was Dietland by Sarai Walker. I gave this 1 star and I DNF'd it at 80% because what the actual fuck is this book? So, I'm a plus size woman. We have established that. Specifically in my one to watch review, and I will again tag that down below. But on the hunt for positive plus size representation that is not the side character, that is not the fat friend, that is not the person who is berated and abused and made fun of for the entire book. I'm not here for that. I went to high school. I got my licks. I dealt with the bitches and the fuckboys. I don't need to read any more of that bullshit in my life. This book, on the other hand, while initially I'm thinking, this is going to be good commentary on weight loss surgery. Our main character, Plum, wants to have weight loss surgery, and she is trying to justify it to herself. She's doing all the things she needs to be doing. Count her calories, working out, taking care of business, while working for a very trashy teen novel that plays into the insecurities that teenagers have. We've got that. And then she meets some eccentric people, and there's like a side plot of murder and mayhem for people who sexually assault women, which again, I'm a feminist. Like, don't fuck with us, we would come after you. Who you kidding? And while I enjoyed that, there was like domestic terrorism going on. If you get 80% of the way through a book and you're still going, okay, I'm really confused as to what exactly is going on here, and is this supposed to be making me feel good about myself? Because it's not. You just let it go. You just let it go. And that was it was like a feel-good DNF. It was like, thank you, get out of my life. Enough about that. The next book I read was Witches, Volume 1 by Scott Snyder. I gave this 5 stars because of the creepy goodness. Okay, imagine this. Witches with a Y, not with an I. They live underground inside trees. And if you've been pledged to them, like a blood pledge, they can just suck you into the tree and eat you. Okay. That's all I'm gonna say. It was so good. It was spooky. I really enjoyed it. The twist at the end. What? The next book I read is probably my favorite book I read this month. And that was The Stepford Wives by Ear 11. Oh my God. I'm so glad I read this book. And I'm actually working on a video where I discuss this book and compare it to the 1975 movie, The Stepford Wives, and the 2004 movie, The Stepford Wives. And I'm gonna do like a whole comparison thing. I just haven't had time to sit down and do it all, but I am going to make it happen. I already have the DVDs from the library. I just need to film it and get it together. This book is magnificent. This book is spooky. The ending of this book messed me up. It was open-ended and I was not prepared, and thank you, self, for picking this out of all the other books when I picked my challenge. Really, really pleased with this. Obviously, it was a 5-star. Love this. And definitely something I'm going to recommend to a lot of people. The next book I read was a Libro FM pick, and that was Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. I'm a huge Bachman fan, and every book prior to Anxious People I had rated 5 stars. So I went into this expecting to rate this also 5 stars. That didn't happen. I give this 3 stars, and it's probably an ignorant thing for me because I don't suffer from anxiety. I also do not suffer from depression or any mental illness that has been diagnosed by a professional. When I discuss things, especially books that have that as the main focus, I'm not the person that can give this an accurate review. I can just tell you how it affected me and how I enjoyed the book. So if you are somebody who suffers with severe depression, trigger warning for suicide and suicidal tendencies, I would recommend Anxious People because I think that there is something more here that was lost on me. And that's all I'm gonna say. Again, 3 stars. It wasn't bad. The audiobook was actually really funny. Classic Bachman. It is a balance between serious subject matter and comical things that are going on, but it rode a pretty steady line of getting to the point, which is why I like him. The next book I read was Lakewood by Megan Giddings, and this was a Get TBR pick for me for this recent quarter. I gave this 4 stars. It is about medical testing being done on by POC. It is a speculative sci-fi horror novel. It was messed up. It was next level with the things that were happening to the characters and the lack of diversity of the patients to the doctors. It was messed up. I like that Giddings does this fictional depiction of things that have actually happened to by POC. The Tuskegee experiments. Let us not forget Henrietta Lacks and the things that happened to her and the fact that her family still has not gotten paid. I think that this book will not be for everybody. I will go on a limb because it is a little confusing. Honestly, I think that it reminded me a bit of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest because it is a little unreliable from the narrator standpoint. You're not really sure what's going on. So it's insidious in that way, which is very effective for the spooky, scary vibes. I finished White Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism by Robin DiAngelo. I gave this 4 stars. I think that Robin DiAngelo brings up a lot of really pertinent information that if you're somebody who is starting your anti-racism journey, will be super helpful. But somebody like myself, who is a little bit further into my journey, having read a lot of other anti-racist material prior to this, to me, it felt a little beginner. It felt beginner, which isn't a bad thing. And I definitely think this is something that people should read, especially from a workplace standpoint. This does a really nice job of discussing DiAngelo's job and how she goes into workplaces and is able to have those hard conversations in a professional setting. So if you are somebody who is in a HR realm, or hell, if you're somebody who works inside of an office that is very diverse, it teaches you the appropriate ways to talk and be with BIPOC. And I think that's important. I think that not enough of that kind of education is given, which is depressing and sad and all of those things. But this is America. Yeah. I finished The Dark Tower Treachery, which is book 3 by Robin Firth. I gave this 5 stars. It is getting good. Things are happening. More violence. Not that that's a good thing, but for me, it was very good. I really enjoyed this, and I'm glad that I'm continuing my journey this month. I then read Basketful of Heads by Joe Hill, which is his new graphic novel that just came out at the end of September. And I freaking loved this. 5 whole stars. Joe Hill, honey. Whatever you're doing in the graphic novel realm, I love. Lock and Key, I love. Favorite graphic novel series, hands down. If you've not read it or if you've not heard of it, read it. It's fabulous. Basketful of Heads was delightful. It was spooky. I love the island feeling. It reminded me of Jaws with the summer people and the people who have summer jobs and things that were happening. I really like this. The artwork was phenomenal. Plus, badass female lead characters. I am always here for badass female lead characters. 100%. I then finished Abattoir, which was the 6 issue. There's not a collection, so I had to read all 6 issues. So technically on Goodreads, it counted as 6 different books. That's by Darren Lynn Bozeman. This is a horror graphic novel collection. It's just the 6 issues. So it's probably about 150 pages total. This was not great. This was not great. I thought that it was going to be way spookier. The covers of these graphic novels are scary as hell, but the actual graphic novel was just meh. Not great. I gave it 3 stars overall. I think there was like 1 issue that I gave 4 stars to, and there was 1 issue that I gave 2 stars to, but the rest of them were just okay. I don't know. I don't know if I can recommend this. Not a huge fan. I then finished To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. I did a full 8-minute review for this. I think it's 8 minutes. It's long. I'll link it down below. This was my first Christopher Paolini book. I did not read the Aragon series or the Inheritance series when it was first released, but I am a sci-fi person, so obviously when Libro FM had this on offer, I had to get it. But it's really long. It's a 32-hour audiobook listen, which, by the way, was phenomenally done. And if you are an audiobook person, I can highly recommend. The narrator is magnificent. That was really my biggest complaint, was that it was so long. It was great, but it was really long and parts of it were not necessarily as exciting as other parts. I will say bonus points to this for not taking a book that was 880 pages long and then cutting it into 3 books so that you were left with like cliffhangers and you had to keep reading. So thank you, Christopher. Appreciate you. Not enough books do that. I then finished Shit Actually, the definitive 100% objective guide to modern cinema by Lindy West. This was hysterical. I rated 4 out of 5 DVDs of The Fugitive. If you've read it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But Lindy West is somebody who I really enjoy. I enjoy her audiobooks. She reads them. I enjoy the way she commentates life, and I appreciate her being in this space as a plus size person and speaking truths, man. Like, come out into the world and speak truths. So very much appreciate her and her book. This is just lighthearted fun, especially if you are needing a break between some serious stuff. I can recommend. I then finished Queenie by Candace Cardi Williams, which is this month's book club pick for one of my book clubs that I'm in. I gave this 4 stars after being really disconnected and not enjoying the first 3/4 of the book. As I came to a close in the end of the book, I realized as a reader and as a white woman, this book's not written for me. It's not meant to be enjoyed by a white woman. It is very much centric on Black women life, family, the expectations of family, the way society views them, the way they inhabit their spaces in relationships and friendships. And it took me getting to the 3/4 mark and then finishing this book to really recognize that it's okay if a book is not meant for me. If I take myself out of context from an enjoyment factor, because I did enjoy the end of the book quite a bit, I can recognize that the reason I would feel disconnected with the main character, Queenie, is because that I don't relate to her. And I think a lot of times when you read, it is difficult to love a book if you don't feel a connection. That was the revelation that I had was, well, I don't have a connection with her, but that doesn't mean that this book is bad. And that's a me problem, not an it problem. I then finished The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This is an indigenous horror story, and I didn't like it. I gave it 3 stars. I enjoy Jones's writing, and I enjoy that he writes from an indigenous perspective and uses indigenous people to raise awareness to their truths. I really appreciated that. But there is a whole 1/4 of this book that focuses mainly on basketball, and I care not a lick about basketball. And that part of the book, those parts of the book, were so mind-numbingly boring that it wasn't for me. And I wasn't particularly scared by our big baddie, so to speak. I will give you trigger warnings for violence because it is a horror novel. There's a lot of gore. Violence against animals as well, just FYI. And like I said, I gave this 3 stars, but I will be reading more Graham Jones because I think that he is writing really fabulous, creative stories in the horror space, and that excites me. The last book I finished in September, I know, we've been going forever, was Transcendent Kingdom by Yaa Gyasi. Once again, this is a book that I recognize as being pivotal and having very interesting commentary on the immigrant lifestyle, the African immigrant lifestyle, and specifically in the South, religion, the lack thereof of religion, how people utilize their religion and how they come to or come away from religion. And I really loved Jassie's. Her writing is beautiful, and I cannot wait to read Homegoing. I'm that's on the docket for next month. So excited. I was really impressed by the writing in this. The audiobook is phenomenal. Bonnie Turpin narrates it, and she's my fave ever, period. I love her as an audiobook narrator. I got this from Libro FM. I gave this 4 stars. It is excellent, but I'm not really a slice of life type of reader, and I really, really, really wanted not a confrontation, but a conclusion with Gifty and her mom. That would have been 5 star. Had I gotten that confrontation, had I gotten that interaction and been able to read that, easily 5 stars, because I felt like it was building to that, and then when it didn't happen, I was disappointed. Still, it's an excellent book, and I can highly recommend it. Okay. Wow, I've been talking forever. That's a lot of books. I don't know if this month's reading is going to be as good. I've not been as active. But yeah. Oh my god, my skin's so dry. I gotta end this. I hope you guys are having a freaking awesome October so far. I know I am. I have Hocus Pocus on in the other room, and I've just been listening to it. And I'm gonna go cook dinner. So, have a good rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're watching this. I hope you guys like, subscribe, all of the good things. Comment down below. And tell me if you've read anything that I've read. If you agree or disagree. More importantly, always feel comfortable recommending a book to me, because I love a good book recommendation to add to my queue. I'll see you guys later. Bye!